All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Aaron Fragnito, your host of the Passive Cash Flow Podcast. We're back again with another episode, and I have an amazing guest I've known here for almost a decade. We have Nick Tang. Nick Tang, how are we doing today?
Thank you. I'm good, man. Great to see you, bro.
Absolutely, my friend. So happy to have you here. We met, in 2010, I think? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
2010, I was coming back from Colorado, Steamboat Springs, Colorado, as a ski instructor. I had read all these books about how easy it is to start a real estate investment firm, and you bought me my first box of We Buy Houses signs. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. I don't even know where we met. I think was it at John and Randy's?
John Steingraber's event. Yeah, in Garwood. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. He packs the house there. And NJRESN. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's one of my, John's an amazing guy, and his events are amazing. But I think we met there, and then I think you signed up for a class with me as well. I think you said I was the first class or something like that, or the only class you ever signed up for.
So yeah, I went on meetup.com, right? So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I moved out to Colorado. I was like, okay, I'm going to do real estate. I read all these books about it. Came back home. I was like, oh, meetup.com is how you get in these networking groups. So I went on there, and you had a course about short sales, right? How to do short sale negotiations. And this is like when short sales were super hot and no one knew how to do this stuff. And I went to your course, and there was probably about 10 or 15 other people in the room. You know, you're kind of getting started. It was good. You're starting to pack the place. Oh, then I went and then I signed up for the bigger course.
Right.
And then that was packed. You had 100 people in there. Remember that? Yeah, that was good. And I think, and you had done some of it and you knew about it and you were trying to convey it to us. And I had a million questions and no one else was asking questions there, but I was really engaged. And I think you saw that. And then we connected afterwards and we were the same age and kind of took off from there, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how long later, you did your first short sale transaction, but I knew you did a lot of transactions, even before that.
Right. I was learning the transactions, doing them as a realtor. They called me the $40,000 man. I just basically did any transaction, how small, big. And I met these guys that were just bottom feeders in the market, just scooping up properties for pennies on the dollar. And I was like, how are they doing that? I'm going to learn from these guys. And, so all the realtors were like, why would you sell $40,000 properties? The commission you make is so small. I'm like, that is short-sighted. I'm in a long game here.
Yeah, you're right. They're still realtors and you're the guy that's now buying.
Now they're my realtor.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's great. I remember we had the We Buy Houses signs. I put those up on the telephone poles, and then you also got a phone number for me. And then about 3 months in, I didn't realize I had to start paying that phone number, and the phone number canceled, stopped working, but I was still putting up all these signs. And a few months in, I'm like, why am I not getting any more calls? These used to work so well. I'm like, I just need to put up more. I'll put up more and more signs. So I kept putting them more and more in a suit and tie in the hot sun in the middle of August. And eventually I tried the number probably around a month later. And it was like, this number is disconnected. And I was like, oh my God, I had all these.
I'm sorry, but I didn't even know. I don't know what number I got it from, what service provider I was getting it from. But if I did, I would have told you.
No, it's fine. You know what? I should have been more on top of my business, What a rookie move, really, And the funny thing is I now call our number every few months or so just to make sure there's no billing mistakes or anything like that. And
that's great.
Yeah, right. And one time I called it and it was not in service, and I looked it up and there was a mistake they made with billing, the company, the phone company. And I was like, you guys got to fix this and get my number back online because I got my We Buy Houses.
Yeah. That's great, man. Well, it ingrained something within you.
Yeah, it did. It did. Taught me a little bit about maintaining your business there, dotting your I's and crossing your T's, and also kind of working smart, not hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was interesting. All right. So listen, enough about me. This podcast is about Nick Tang. Okay. Right. Here we are just talking about me. So talk to us about how you got started. I read a little bit of your bio back from, I love your story coming to America. I know it's a little personal, but you want to talk about that for a sec? It's really incredible.
Yeah. I think everybody, a lot of people, they think oh, I was just born rich or in a middle-class family. I in Asia I was rich, but then because of communism spreading, my family lost everything. you know, and because my family was also rich, like they, you know, in a communist country, like they're not like, oh, hey, sell us your business. It's, oh, hey, we're taking over your business, you know, and we're taking everything that you own type thing. So because of that, my family decided to escape Vietnam.
Wow.
And during our escape, it's not like you can just buy a ticket and fly out of the country. You have to literally like sneak out of the country, sneak into another country, and then from there find a refugee camp or like some sort of organization that can help you be okay or allowed to stay there.
Wow.
So it's not like you don't know this. You don't find these, or you don't know that you're allowed to be there until you're there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. That's crazy.
And so that was a journey itself, coming to like Thailand, getting into Thailand because we were captured by these pirates.
Oh my gosh.
And I was only like 8, so I don't remember like everything, every detail. But I remember we were captured. I remember we stayed at a refugee camp for a year, and then eventually we got our paperwork, and we got sponsored, came to America, lived in a poor neighborhood where my neighbors were like kind of like bothering us or teasing us or trying to like get us kicked out or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like it's like I invest in low income areas today, but I also lived in a low income area, you know, and it's weird when you live there because it's not that it's weird in a way where the way it's weird is like everybody's kind of like after each other. You know, it's like they're not together trying to do something. They're instead against each other.
Yeah, they're not on the same team, you know?
Yeah. And like we were just Asians living in a bad neighborhood or low income area. But like for whatever reason, they felt like we didn't belong there. You know, and so they kept causing problems for us. And then eventually we decided to move. I eventually made it to New Jersey and, you know, went to school, tried to learn English. I wasn't really interested in learning English. I was more interested in playing video games. And at a young age, I became an entrepreneur. A lot of people think like real estate was my first business. It's not. It's probably like my 20th business. Yeah. And
the rest were really successful. I just got tired of them. Yeah.
No, the funny part is like you do get tired of it. Like
you
do get tired of it because I was in a party business at a really young age, and I never even partied. Like you're in a party business, like you're not into party. That's kind of like the movie Van Wilder, you know, where Ryan Reynolds, he becomes this party promoter and he throws the biggest and baddest parties. Well, I did parties, but I never was really an attendee at the party. I just fell into it and realized that, wow, it was an easy way to make money, you know? And then I eventually grew out of it. So you can grow out of doing what you do. I think the biggest secret to success is to figure out how to like systemize or organize the business or whatever it is that you do in a way where it can continue running before you lose interest.
That's a great piece of advice because I think one of the biggest challenges I have and a lot of business owners have is burnout, right? You know, because there are, especially times like now when it's tough and perhaps the cash flow slows down or whatnot and on the flips and stuff and they're in these tough times, it's hard to keep putting in those 50, 60 hours and not burn out or, you know, figure out, hey, maybe I need to take a couple of weeks off or a week or some time off. And that's important. Seth and I try to really recognize that in our business. And we actually say, hey, you know what? You haven't taken a vacation in a year, you know, or you seem stressed out. Take some time off. I'll cover some of your tasks for the next week. And so that's so important to be able to do that and to recognize that. But also not, you know, there's parts of your business, if you hate doing something and it just, you know, it depletes your soul every time you're doing it, you know, whatever, copy and paste, and figure out how to outsource that as soon as you can, you know, and right. But there's like parts of my job, like if you put me in front of a crowd to speak, or I had to do a podcast, you know, 12 hours a day or whatever, I would love it, right? Like there's parts of my job I love doing, which is generally speaking and interacting with people. And there's parts of my job I don't really like doing, which is more the social media marketing and the nitty gritty of the all that marketing and whatnot. But I do enjoy the creativity of it. But it's important to outsource some of the stuff you don't enjoy more quickly than not, you know?
I agree. But I think, but like, don't just do that. Like, you can also outsource the stuff you like to do. Like, one of the things that I got from Dave Lindo's podcast I did with him was he was like, you know, I've been teaching for like 15, 20 years, and I love teaching. I didn't think that I could ever stop because I didn't think it would work, like business. But guess what? It works. And not only that, it grew 3 times. It grew 3x. So he's like, I didn't think it could work without me, but it does, and it grew 3 times bigger.
Right, exactly. 3x it. I should get a hat. 3x.
No, but like, it's crazy, you know, because it's like, you don't think that it would even work.
Yeah.
But it ended up being 3x, you know?
Right. Well, you know, as we were talking about before we started this podcast here, education of real estate is easier to sell than real estate itself or the investment in real estate, right? I talked to so many people in a day, and they would rather invest, you know, $2,500 or $5,000 or even $30,000 in a package of education. Maybe it's a mentorship or something like that, than actually invest sometimes in the real estate. And that's doesn't make sense to me, because when you invest in the real estate, you're going to get that money back, and you're going to get cash flow and tax benefits. And I understand the value of investing in education, but I also think there's a lot of crazy prices on some of this education out there, and people have to pick and choose what's the best fit for them, you know, and make sure they have investment capital left over to actually invest afterwards. You know, that's the toughest story you hear. I had $30,000, but I gave it to a coach because I went to a seminar for a weekend, and they told me that was the way to go. But I have a lot of questions still, and they just want more money to have them answered. So I'm at, you know, and that's a tough spot. I do run into people like that. So it's important not put all your capital into education, and kind of also diversify. I should have capital to invest in real estate, I find.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, my biggest, one of the other secrets that I had discovered in life was, like, I tried doing things first, and then get education on it. Because then you'll, like, I mean, I try to do as much free research as I can, you know, and then from there try to do it. And then, like, once you do it, you know, and it's something you still want to do, then get education on it, real education on it. That way you're like, oh, wow, I did that wrong. You know what I mean? Like, versus, oh, wow, I need more education so that way I can do it when I do it, if I ever do it the first time, it's going to go perfect.
Right. And what people are paying for is actually ease and convenience, not education. Like, I was getting pitched a YouTube marketing service the other day because I'm branching out into YouTube more aggressively. And there's a lot of stuff I need to learn and understand to make this work properly. So I'm looking at hiring a company to essentially kind of coach me and mentor me along the way. But I'm also looking at all the content that company has for free, and then all the content their competitors have for free about how to do YouTube marketing the right way. And what I'm realizing is I just kind of wanted to be able to not have to do all this research. But now I'm recognizing, you know what, if I just do the research and educate myself properly, it's amazing what's out there for free on the internet.
Yeah. So what we're paying for is it's like the education that we're after already, just organized for us,
right?
Or hand it to us, versus we're going to go around Google or YouTube looking for it.
Yeah, you're basically paying for someone to, like, check your work and be like, hey, am I doing the right thing? Am I following in the direction that I read on, you know? And that's helpful. I do have a branding and marketing expert that, like, comes in and tweaks our stuff after I create it sometimes, and she's great. But what I find is, if you just have a really good branding and marketing consultant, instead of paying for some package or educational thing for $5,000 or $10,000, just a good consultant on an hourly basis. I've won at about $175 an hour, and she's great. I do a weekly session with her. She jumps into my ads, she tweaks them, she jumps into my SEO, and that's really what I need. And by doing that, I'm avoiding hiring some of these guys that are like $10,000 to
a month. Yeah, to
get going with, and that's just way too much. You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, listen, everyone has their own value and their own package there. But I really am amazed at what you can get on the internet these days. for free. But hey, speaking of the internet, so you do amazing events, right? And everyone maybe listening to this podcast has been to a Nick Tang event. I've spoken at them. I've met thousands of people there. I've built my industry there, my business. And so how do you, what's the secret, man? How do you pack that room? How do you do that?
Yeah, so the secret is pretty much you have to understand the audience. Like, first of all, whatever industry it is, like if it's real estate, what's the bigger industry? Which one is the bigger audience? Realtors or investors? Like if you understand that there's more realtors than investors. And so it's right there, like packing an event that has to do with realtors is going to be easier, right? But let's say you're after investors. Well, it's fine. The point is that it's going to be a little bit harder to pack an event for investors than there are realtors. But the point is you got to understand your audience. Once you understand that you're after investors, okay, understand the audience even deeper. The majority of investors are newbies, right?
Yeah.
And then at the other deep end is the pro investors, which have a ton of money. They're pretty much somebody everybody's after. Whereas the newbies, they're what are their profile like? They either have money or they don't. They either are trying to get in and do it themselves, or they have money and they're trying to invest. And at the opposite end, the pro investors, they have money, they know what they're doing, and so the game with them is if they have money, they know what they're doing. How do you get their money when they know what they're doing with their money? You get what I'm saying? But if you can answer that question, okay, you will be now literally working with whales.
Sure.
Right? Whereas on the other end, you're in an ocean where there's all different types of fish. And you might end up with a whale, or you might end up with like a small little zebra fish or something like that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But the opposite end, it's all whales.
Yeah.
And so you now have to figure out how to communicate so that way the whales want to work with you.
Sure.
The other thing is the whale audience is way smaller. And so to pack a room of whales is going to be a little bit harder than to pack a room with all different types of people, and so how do you do it, right? So for me, I'm after the easier thing first. So to me, the easier thing was I'm just after big numbers, meaning a large audience. The reason why I like going after large audience first is because it's a branding play. In order for guys that are established to even look at you or consider working with you, in a way, you have to be known, or you have to be known for knowing what you're doing.
Sure.
Right. And so even though you might know what you're doing, but no one knows, like they're like, who is this guy? Yeah, I get it. He does these developments. I get all this stuff, but like no one knows him. So is he an overnight guy, or you know what I mean? And so I would create things, focus on the newbie audience, the larger audience first. What do they want? They want education. They want mentoring. They want opportunity to invest. They want all this stuff. And so you got to provide that. And if you provide that well, in an organized way, they will talk about you.
Right.
And because they talk about you, what happens is that word gets out there, and eventually there's going to be enough whales that hear it. And if you present correctly, like, hey, if you want to invest, like if you have that message in your events or your website or whatever, people are going to reach out. They're going to go on your website, they're going to invest, or they're going to start off with like a 5,000, very small, just to test you out. And then as you do what you say, which is return the investment or whatever it is that you're after, they're going to keep adding more and more and more. And then you end up with whales that you didn't even know were whales.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great way of explaining it. I really have relationships with those large investors, the whales, and also the smaller investors getting started. And we kind of pride ourselves on being a resource to both. I have some investors that invest their $30,000 and that's all they're going to be able to put to work, and that's fine. Maybe a realtor that closed a big deal or something like that. And or some of the self-directed their IRA, most of it, you know. And then we have other investors that I know for a fact are getting started with us and with $100,000 or $50,000 and they able to do millions one day. And I have some investors that are up to that point with millions who I've been working with for years. And that's a nice place to get to over time. And essentially what a lot of people in our position do is those relationships build and build and build. What I understand is I need about 200 good investors. I talk to a lot of people that are, you know, we talked with David Hansel with Alpha Funding. He's a great fundraiser. I'm going to invite him on the podcast as well. Hopefully he accepts. And he was saying to me how 200 good investors, a good pool of 200 investors is how he runs and operates his fund successfully, which I think just put together 50 or 60 million. So that's really where it's at. And then giving them content, right? Giving them something they really want is a value. How do you consistently provide content to your group of people?
So it's like this. If you yourself, like I'm into content creation, you know, like I love creating content, but then there's a point where you get tired of creating content too. Sure. And not only that, but the content we create is from our perspective, and that's only one perspective. There's many people out there that's very successful at doing whatever they do. And the cool part is they arrive at that point in their own perspective. And so one of the ways I create content is I would invite panelists or just do solo interviews like how we're doing right now. You know, I would invite somebody on and I would interview them how they did it. And that interview session alone is not only an opportunity for me to learn, but it's an opportunity for me to create content. You know, so it's I'm learning and I'm creating content at the same time. And because of that, it's kind of like, it's like hacking the game, you know, it's like you're doing two things at once and you're serving your community, but at the same time, you're getting value. And so I learned that hosting events is not only a place for me to do an event for people, but it's also to do an event for me. And that's why I love doing events.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, doing all the speaking, going on the panels at your events. I've probably been on your panel maybe a dozen times over the years. Really helped with my public speaking, helped me get the word out. In fact, we just had an investor move in with a nice $50,000 investment on a property we just closed about a week, just a day or two ago, really. And that investor actually went to your events. He asked who's the best passive syndicator around New Jersey here. And the people told him People's Capital Group. Checked us out online, you know, enjoy the content, our website. And that's the other thing, right? You can have a good reputation. You could go into a Nick Tang event and people could say, yeah, check out People's Capital Group. They're a good resource. But if you don't have the content and the image and the know-how there online to back it up, which is your storefront essentially these days, then, you know, it doesn't matter how good your reputation is. The leads aren't going to follow in.
Right.
But now, do you have help with a lot of that as far as like, you know, all the back office of kind of answering questions and getting all this, you know, all this content out there, organizing the events and everything like that?
Yeah, like, so I read a book called Crush It, right, by Gary Vee. And in that book, he talked about how when he first started doing his podcast, he would just like record. He wasn't going to edit. Like if somebody comes in, walks into the recording session, interrupts the session, or whatever happens, or like the police siren goes off, like something falls out of the sky, didn't matter. He wasn't gonna cut it out. Okay, and what I got from that was what he simply said was this: you know, content creation is it's gonna be the largest time-consuming thing that we should be focused. Like, content creation is what we should be focusing on, not editing, not cleaning, okay? Because if you really think about it, like when we do an hour session, okay, typically we're then going back, reviewing that whole hour and taking another hour, 2-3 hours to edit that stuff.
Sure.
Like if I curse on the call or whatever, I'm not beeping it out. I'm just gonna focus on creating content. So that way he's not wasting the hour, 2 hours to clean it up. And so because of that, that's how I run my whole content creation business. Okay, we record. Don't say that you don't want to beep out, or because I'm not gonna go back and beep it out. Right? And if you trip, fall, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm leaving it there. And so because of that, I don't need anybody to help me clean up the content.
Yeah.
I just record and then the platform I use, I'm going to share it with you after. It puts it automatically on YouTube for me. It puts it on Facebook as well. Okay, and it records it. So like, that's why I was asking you, was this going to be going live? Because going live is one of the most ways to rank yourself high on YouTube and Facebook today.
Right.
Because YouTube wants their content live because it's fresh.
Yeah.
And they also know it's original. All right. And so does Facebook. And so when we do live streams, it on all our friends' walls, when we do it and we're friends with them, it ranks first.
Right.
Newly created content that doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when you go live, also you can't really edit.
Yeah, I kind of like that. It makes me feel like I'm on stage. You know,
Exactly.
I was talking to Seth. I'm like, I miss being on stage. I went from the guy who's on stage 4 times a month, which is like an ego trip, you know, to a guy sitting in his home office, clicking away on social media ads, crushing it on social media. But it's like, put me back on stage, put me in, coach. You know.
So what I'm trying to say is, to answer your question, is that I do content creation in terms of the back end in a really, really lazy way, because it's not about how pretty I look or how the lighting is or how clean the video is. It's all about the conversation we have. And so I focus on that and then making sure that it goes onto the right platforms in as convenient way for me as possible.
Yeah, I'm all about that. You know, I'm just kind of casually discussing, letting the information out, trying to be very transparent. Not saying, hey, listen, everything's rosy, everything works. If you invest in real estate, you'll be a millionaire. Like, no, this stuff's tough. This stuff's not for everyone. And, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Pick the one that's right for you. But it's interesting how I think you're right. And Gary Vee is a huge hit because he's pretty rough around the edges. You know, I mean, rough around the edges works. Look at our president, after all, right? You know, I mean, listen, you want to get notoriety. You know, that's my next guest, actually. Talk about blowing up.
Warren Buffett's right after.
Warren Buffett's right afterwards, yeah. Who would be a better guest to have on your podcast, Warren Buffett or Donald Trump? I guess one's less controversial, that's for sure. But the other one would be pretty badass. So both would be pretty badass. So, oh, man. So we'll work on that. We'll work on that one day. All right, Nick. Well, this is awesome. I think we should wrap up here. How can people get in touch with you or attend one of your events? And what do you have going on?
I'm actually updating my website right now. It's going to be called nicktang.com.
Wow.
Right. So give it like a week from today. It'll be up. You can, you know, check out some of the video content I have. Also on that site, I'll have links to all our events. So in a way, everything that you could need in terms of that has anything to do with me is going to be on there.
Great. I love it. Nicktang.com. All right. Awesome, man. Awesome. No, I love it. I think that's great branding. You know, you have all these different networks, Central Jersey and this and that. And I'm like, just call them Nick Tang groups. That's what everyone else calls them. They're like, did you go to the Investors RIA meetup? Like, what? What do you mean Nick Tang's group? Like, yeah. I was at Nick. Yeah. You're at Nick's event. That's right. Everyone just calls them Nick's events. No one actually calls them whatever they're called. No one even knows.
Right.
Like something with an REI, IEA, I don't know. They're all the same. But no, it's great, man. Good stuff there. I'm glad we're building our businesses together. And I will see you at the top there. And hopefully maybe we'll do something on your group next week or so. Maybe we'll go live.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. All right. Have a good day.
Thank you, Aaron.